Hello everyone, so today I thought I'd show you a little demonstration of how colours can change between different brands. I realised that in my collection I have all these different tubes of burnt sienna, and I know some are quite different to others, so I thought let's lay them all out and have a look and see how much they differ. Just to give you a little introduction to burnt sienna, it's one of the earliest pigments that's used to derive burnt sienna, used by man. You'll see it in cave dwellings, in that, the cave art that you get in prehistoric cave dwellings. But it wasn't until the 14th century in the Renaissance that it was properly developed for art. Now, it's usually, or most brands will use a pigment number PBR7, which is a natural earth pigment, from which is also derived burnt umber, raw sienna. The companies using PBR7 include the Holbein, which is this one, Daniel Smith, I believe, and My Mary Blue are all using these pigment PBR7. It's generally, burnt sienna is generally made from heating raw sienna. They heat it up and it produces burnt sienna. Some brands use a pigment called PR101, which is transparent red oxide, to make burnt sienna, or burnt sienna hue as they call it. Some companies mix both pigments. They use a mix of both pigments. It's a great colour to use for skin tones, landscapes. Great for making greys and browns and shadow colours. Usually a transparent or semi-transparent pigment, burnt sienna. So here I've laid out some little dots from my tubes of all the different brands, as you can see at the top here, just to have a look at how much they differ. So I'm just going to wet my brush. This is the Winsor & Newton Cotman, which is the student grade burnt sienna, rather than the more expensive artist grade. Just need to coax it a bit with the water. Get some idea of that. I hope you can see that all right on the camera. Okay, that's the Winsor & Newton Cotman. The second one is the professional Winsor & Newton grade burnt sienna. It's at the moment quite similar to the student grade in colour. Of course, we have to wait till these dry to see exactly what's going on with the colours, so hopefully by the time we get to the end they will have started to dry. Next one I've got here is the Daler-Rowney Aquafine, which is kind of the Daler-Rowney student grade. Looks quite similar again to the other two. And this is the Daler-Rowney artist grade burnt sienna. Again, quite similar. Okay, so far so good. This one is the Schminke Horridum burnt sienna. Okay, a little bit different. Browner, in fact, I would say. This is slightly orange, this is slightly browner, redder maybe. Next one is the Daniel Smith. Lovely watercolours, Daniel Smith. But you can see it's quite different. Quite different again. Much browner. Next one is the My Mary Blue. Slightly more orange again this time, or maybe in between. Browny orange. Next one is the Holbein. And just for the sake of it, at the end here, I put the Winsor & Newton Designer Gouache or Gouache, which water-based. If for those of you who aren't familiar with these paints, they're water-based, but much more opaque than watercolours. You can probably see there it's more opaque. It'll probably be more obvious when it dries. Over here I've got the raw sienna, which the burnt sienna is usually made, as I said, by heating the raw sienna. So you can see the raw sienna is a much more yellow, browny yellow. Used a lot by me actually in landscapes and all sorts of other things, flesh tones. So heating the raw sienna will give you the burnt sienna colours, generally, most of the browns. So this is still a bit wet, starting to dry here. They will dry lighter. The watercolours always dry quite a bit lighter. But you can probably see, apart from the tone, you can see a difference in the colour, in the hue. These, quite an orangey brown. The Winsor & Newton and the De La Ronis. The Schminker, much more of a reddy brown really. The Daniel Smith, quite different to the others again. Much more browny. My Mary Blue, probably somewhere between this and these. You know, slightly more brown. And then the Holbein, quite orangey. Quite strong orange. And the gouache, it's similar I suppose to the Winsor & Newton. This is Winsor & Newton gouache, so quite similar to the Winsor & Newton watercolours, which I suppose you'd expect. So quite a bit of difference there in fact. So it's always worth checking out these colours, you know, and don't necessarily, if you've got lots of tubes, don't switch from one to the other, particularly if you're a beginner, because you might get quite different colours and effects if you suddenly switch to a different brand. So get to know your paints is what I would say. Get to know the colours you're working with and what they do. And also look into other, points to do with your paints. So whether they're transparent or not, how staining they are. So just a bit of advice there, particularly, you know, for the beginners. And hope that's been helpful. See you again soon. Bye.